Picture a campsite, one of the standard issue kinds replicated in national forests and parks around the country. In a lot of ways, it's the quintessential American image, the kind of image you'd find on a postage stamp or in an ad for a new Made in the USA truck, or maybe even in your favorite Brady Bunch episode. In so many ways, these sites represent our collective values. After all, these campgrounds exist because of good national policy, good government, real bedrock stuff. At the particular site I have in mind, there's a little gravel pull-off for a vehicle and a bare pad just large enough for a 4-person tent. Off to the side, a picnic table cozies up to a well-used fire ring lined with blackened stones. Maybe you've slept at sites like this. Perhaps you and your kids have roasted marshmallows in that fire ring, feeling the chipped paint of the picnic table on your bare legs as you stretch toasting sticks into the embers, liking the way the soles of your shoes heated up on the rocks. Even if you haven't actually done this, I bet you can still imagine it. Why? Because it is a deeply American scene. Go West young man meets wholesome family togetherness, complete with hot dogs and Jiffy Pop. Now imagine the force required to cleave that land, to strike a fissure between that picnic table and fire ring. One moment the two objects sit side by side, just a few feet separating them. The next moment, the fire ring and everything to the east of it drops 20 feet. Your toes are no longer touching warm stones, they're dangling off a cliff. This scenario sounds like the sort of thing that can only happen in Hollywood. But 60 years ago, that's precisely what happened at the Cabin Creek Campground just outside Yellowstone National Park. On August 17, 1959, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake ruptured with an epicenter just a few miles from there. The sheer force of that rupture caused the land to split and half of the site to plummet in what geologists call a scarp, or a sharp line of cliffs caused by seismic activity. As terrifying as that would have been for anyone there, it was the least of the damage to the area. Just across the river, the nation's biggest recorded rock slide, over 73 million metric tons of debris, roared down a canyon wall, burying 19 people. They were never recovered. At least 9 other victims died of their injuries. Today, a massive lake rests where their campsites once stood. Nearby, you can find geysers and fissures and sinkholes where there were none, all because of this single earthquake. You can be forgiven for thinking that the ground beneath your feet is solid. For most of us, it certainly appears as much. When I was 7, I ran away with my mother's formal silverware, wrongly thinking there was a utensil shortage in China. Because I knew that the shortest distance between 2 points was a straight line, I also took my dad's shovel, figuring I could dig my way there in a couple of days. I lasted about an hour before I hit the dense clay that makes up so much of the Mississippi River corridor. To my scrawny arms, it was impenetrable. I assumed everything below it was equally unyielding, and so I returned home defeated before anyone had even noticed that the silver and I were missing. If basic earth science had been covered in my first-grade curriculum, I'd like to think I wouldn't have bothered with the shovel. Maybe you remember that iconic drawing of the planet cut into a cross-section that's often used in geology textbooks. I always think it looks like a peach. Thin outer skin, flesh that's not quite solid or liquid, a tidy pit. That outer layer, insofar as the planet is concerned, is called the crust. This is a misleading term. It's actually made up of a bunch of jagged pieces known as plates. The current best guess is that right now, there are 15 big ones and a handful of smaller ones floating around. The thicker and less dense ones are known as continental plates, the heavier ones are oceanic. We'll talk more about each in the next chapter. What's important to know now is that these plates, which are forever in motion themselves, also bear the scars of billions of years of upheaval and trauma on this planet. For instance, beginning near Lake Superior, there's a 1,000-mile forked crack down the center of this country known as the Mid-Continent Rift. One tine of this crack snakes down to Oklahoma. The other works its way clear to Alabama. This rift exists because about 1 billion years ago, the continent began to break apart. Scientists aren't sure why the rift began to form, though they think it might have been because of volcanic activity below it. Even more puzzling to them is why we're still in one piece. A similar rift threading through East Africa appears to be succeeding in ripping that continent in two.